What if Superman met somebody just like him? A superpowered alien individual that was the last of his kind. Welcome to the Complete Story series, where we take trade paperbacks and single issues and we break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then we read it dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. Ever wonder what a Superman story written by Jeff Johns of the Amazing Green Lantern runs would be like? 25 years ago in the Ulysses Research Center, alarms were blaring. They breached a planet known as Dimension 2, and an odd material from it was busy trying to absorb the entire lab that they were in. Knowing that they were going to die, two individuals decided to save their only son. So they approached the machine that would allow them to travel between dimensions, and they chose Dimension 4, the only dimension that they discovered that had intelligent life. They hoped that their son would be accepted by this alien life form, because the ship that they used to send their son through the portal was only large enough for their son and no one else. So they said goodbye, and the entire facility was absorbed from the being from Dimension 2. But let's go to the present day. Superman is the hero of Metropolis, everyone's favorite and the beacon of truth and justice for the entire world. And he just punched a giant robotic gorilla into oblivion. The downside to being the most superpowered individual with the powers of a god, though, is he gets lonely sometimes. Both of his parents are dead, so the only people that he can talk to about his powers are his friends in the League. But Diana is busy, Bruce is out, and he just finds himself remembering the good old days with his parents. There is no rest for Superman, though, as he hears the call for help and he takes off to save the day, as he always does. He arrives on the scene of panic quickly with an alien speaking gibberish and trying to harm him. So he starts by cutting into the alien with his heat vision, only to have some kind of a feedback hit him, throwing him off of his footing. The alien uses this to his advantage to jump in and put Superman through a wall, and just as Superman is getting his footing back to begin his own onslaught, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man flies into him at rocketing speeds. Both the alien and this man begin speaking this gibberish language, but don't worry, Superman speaks a language that everyone can understand, fighting, and he jumps in to get a punch in on this alien along with the blonde-haired man. Once it's all said and done, Superman catches his breath and he thanks the blonde-haired man that looks a tad confused. "You're speaking English? This isn't possible. Cleric said that he would come to my homeworld and destroy it. I believed Earth to be destroyed, and I thought that there was no threat. But here we are. Earth survived." "Who are you?" Superman asks. "They call me Ulysses. I thought I was the last son of Earth, but I guess I'm not alone." Superman leaves Ulysses and begins his research as to who this individual is, which begins with using the old articles at the Daily Planet to find the key word, Ulysses. What he discovers is that Perry wrote the first article about the original research center. But before Clark can get any more information about the location of that lab, a certain last man of Earth comes into the building looking for his new and only Earth friend. He walks straight up to Clark. "There you are." Clark looks around panicked. Yes, you were here for that interview. Perry, this is my little surprise for you." And the two of them leave the Daily Planet with Lois wondering, how did Clark get that interview? But back at Clark's place, he explains that you just can't go around revealing people's secret identities. And Ulysses asks, "What's a secret identity?" "It's a way to blend in, to be among the normal humans. I'm not exactly human, Ulysses." So Clark reaches into his folder and he pulls out a photo of Ulysses' parents. "I think this is your parents, and I'm going to investigate the lab where they sent you off. It looks like they did it to save you, but there's something odd about the news story that I'm reading. You stay here and you wait for me this time while I'll go there and see what I can find." So Clark changes into his uniform and he takes off to the skies to investigate while Ulysses waits to hear. But Ulysses thinks about what Superman said. Blend in. So he takes some of Clark's clothes and he goes off into the city. He's amazed at the world around him, though he doesn't understand why people keep calling him handsome or buddy. I mean, his real name is Neil. So after taking the steak sandwich from a generous man who gave it to him and then ignoring the man who was asking for something called money, an explosion goes off nearby, and this looks like a job for a helpful superpowered fellow human. Walking out of the explosion are robot humans that look like soldiers, and he quickly begins to melt them with his heat vision. The city streets begin to take damage as Ulysses doesn't control his aim and he continues to battle it out. But luckily, Superman is on the phone with Perry as Clark. He explains that an explosion just happened right outside of his window and he has no idea what's going on. So Clark hangs up and Superman heads off. He gets there as Ulysses is finishing up and he explains, "You need to do this and not damage the city, Ulysses. Why did you leave when I asked you to stay?" And Ulysses tells him, "I wanted to protect my fellow humans. Why do things like this happen here? What's wrong with Earth?" So Superman looks at the androids and he realizes that these look like the gorilla that he fought a few days ago. But we'll get back to this later. I want you to come with me. I figured something out while I was looking at that lab. Superman takes Ulysses to a random house in the middle of the city. And behind the front door are Ulysses' parents, his real parents. You see, they didn't die. They actually saved the lab and many of the scientists. But they destroyed the lab in doing so, and they even destroyed their research, preventing them from finding their only son. As Ulysses holds his parents close and everyone is overjoyed that the others are alive, Superman smiles, and then he grows sad as he thinks about his own parents that passed away. That night after their joyous reunion, Clark is trying to sleep when he wakes up to an odd feeling. Ulysses is sitting next to his bed. "What are you doing here?" Clark asks, startled. "I wasn't sure if you needed sleep. I don't. Ever since I went through the portal, my body has been imbued with the ability to absorb all energy around me. Because of that, I can never sleep. And I have these amazing powers." He then holds up a piece of the android from earlier. "Using my abilities, I was able to see where this piece comes from, and I can track similar energies. I know where the man behind the robots is." So Clark smiles. "Cool, let me get my cape." The two of them land in a scrapyard and Clark uses his heat vision to blast into the ground. But once again, his heat vision gives him a weird feedback. Ulysses sees what's happening and he explains. It's probably him. He absorbs energy passively and is probably messing with Clark's powers. So he steps back, allowing Superman to cut into the ground and get them inside. And as they walk through the facility, they find an assembly line of sorts. When suddenly, a bug lands on Ulysses' head and it bores into his brain. He turns to Superman and he fires heat vision into his stomach. Superman reels back. What's going on? But Ulysses is silent as he throws punches at him. So Superman lifts him off the ground. I'm guessing that little bug is messing with your mind, so let me fix that for you. And he slams Ulysses into a wall, allowing him to just pluck it out of his head. I bet you're wondering if you've hurt him, aren't you, Superman? Says a man in a robot mask behind him. A bunch of robotic wolves then jump on Superman. Why are you doing this? He asks as he puts the robots into the ground. Why? It's because any of my creations that can survive more than 10 seconds with you will be worth millions. So Superman puts them down. They won't last 5. But Ulysses gets back up, grabs the machinist by the chest and yells, "Don't you mess with my mind!" And he blasts him through the chest with his heat vision, killing him. Ulysses, what did you do? I had to kill him. But the voice of the machinist comes out of a voice box in the man's neck. I'm still alive, and you just killed an innocent man. Ulysses slumps over when he realizes what he's done, but after the police arrive and Superman inspects the body, he explains to Ulysses that this man was already dead. The bug was so deep in his body that he was nothing more than a walking corpse. But you would have murdered him, and you need to be more careful. So Ulysses gets up and he looks at the machinery. Using his same power as before, they track the machinist to a boat off the pier, and they lift the boat out of the water. They make quick work of the machinist's robots, and they get into the boat itself where Superman corners the machinist. Tell me who you've sold your little toys to. But the machinist laughs. I'll never give up my clientele. Stand back, Superman. I can use my power to map out where all of his energy signatures are, Ulysses says as he grabs the machinist. But what he sees shocks him. Weapons everywhere, not just the machinist's robots, but guns, bombs, nuclear weapons, nations fighting nations, man fighting man. Ulysses hits the ground in disgust. Why does man fight amongst itself when there are still larger problems, like disease, famine, and natural disasters? These are common enemies of man, yet they're obsessed with weapons. We need to find and destroy all their weapons, all of them, Superman. We can't do that, Ulysses, as Superman helps him up. Then how do we save man? By leading by example, Ulysses. And we just expect everyone to follow through? With that, Ulysses leaves. The machinist blows the boat up with everyone standing in it, leaving Superman standing on a destroyed boat with no Ulysses in sight. Ulysses flies around the world, seeing all of the death and destruction, the memorials and the memories, and he comes up with a plan. And he broadcasts it to the entire world. Last week, I returned to Earth. I hoped that I'd be able to help it become the place that my parents had always dreamed of. But sadly, there are far too many here that are hungry for control, and with hate in their hearts, it makes it impossible. I am now offering a choice to all who want what my parents want. A world of peace, love, and acceptance. He then tears open the very barriers of reality and he shows Dimension 4 on the other side, his adopted world. Join me in a better tomorrow! We leave in 24 hours! Will you join us? Superman moves fast and he gets next to Ulysses. What are you doing, Neil? You can't just take people from Earth. But Ulysses is determined. I'm not taking anyone. I'm offering them a chance. We need to talk about this, Ulysses. What's there to talk about, Superman? This world is lost in depravity. What has gotten better since my parents sent me away? I'm not going to pretend that I can save Earth. I can't and you can't. I'm not here to fix every problem in the world. It's beyond me, Ulysses. But it's not beyond the people here. I believe it is. And on that note, Ulysses leaves Superman standing there in the rain. Things move quickly as the ships arrive above Metropolis and people begin to clamor and fight to get on board. But everyone who fights in the presence of the aliens is automatically removed from the ship. Violence will not be permitted. The whole thing seems fishy to Superman, so he flies around trying his best to get answers. But his first clue that something isn't right is that Ulysses arrives at the home of his parents to inform them that they can't come along. When they ask him why, he responds with tears in his eyes. I didn't know you were still alive. They didn't tell me that you were still alive. I'm trying to protect you. But Superman was in the other room because he was trying to convince Ulysses' parents to talk him out of this. So he steps out of the shadows. What's really going on? What are you doing here, Superman? And he throws a punch at Superman. That Superman catches. It wasn't supposed to be like this, Ulysses says, as he supercharges his fist, launching Superman out of the house. I don't want to do this, Superman, any of it. But this is the only way to save my parents and to save you. You're a good man! And he rockets into Superman's stomach, pushing him through countless buildings. Why? Superman says, refusing to fight back. Why are you doing this? I've done this countless times before, but this is different. This is Earth. A perfect world has its cost, Superman, and Earth must pay for it. Ulysses says as he holds Superman by his head with blood streaming down his face. With Superman refusing to fight back, Ulysses places him into a device that will hold him in place. As the alien from the beginning of our story arrives and points at Superman speaking the same weird language, Superman wants to know what's going on. This is Klevik, my adoptive father, and we staged the whole fight when I first arrived to earn your trust so the world would trust me. So that when I promised them this world, they would believe me. What are you going to do with 6 million people? Superman demands to know. What does it matter? We're going to the 4th dimension to save my adoptive world. The great world is powered by its core, and it's life energy that powers that core. It needs to be replenished every decade, otherwise the world will perish. I am their seeker. I go between the 5 dimensions to find worlds that can provide fuel. They will have a greater purpose this way. They will save a world of peace. They will save a paradise. You are saving paradise by slaughtering millions of innocents, Ulysses. Stop this! But then, Superman looks down into one of the cargo holds, and he sees the one thing that might stop him. Ulysses, your parents are on that ship. I told them not to come! Will you really let your parents die, Ulysses? So Ulysses breaks Superman out. We need to move fast! If I use my energies, I can redirect the cells. I can turn the ships back to Earth and we can unload them. But then, Superman, I'm going to need your help to convince the people of the 4th dimension to board the ships and come to Earth so we can save them. We'll only have a few days. Shouldn't be a problem. And the 2 heroes fly through the ship, breaking down any walls in their way so that Ulysses can turn the whole ship around. Once they get to the core, he stands in the middle of it, and he begins to absorb everything and take all of the power into himself. Ulysses manages to turn the ship around, but he took too much of the energy from it, shutting down the core of the cargo ship, which in turn prematurely begins to detonate the core of the 4th dimension. With no other choice, Superman grabs Ulysses and he goes faster than he's ever gone before to outrun a dying and exploding world. As chunks of the world begin to slam into the 2 men, Ulysses looks at Superman. Did you hear them scream as they died? Because I did. You lied to me! And he grabs Superman and he begins to put him through the many pieces of the planet that are flying past them. You tricked me into saving Earth before I saved my own world! They accepted me! They trusted me! You destroyed my home and now I will destroy yours! And the 2 men slip through the dimensions once again, landing back on Earth in the center of Metropolis. And then Ulysses slams Superman into the nearby forest. I'm not going to fight you, Superman tells him. Fine! Then watch me destroy your world the same way I destroyed mine! I will absorb all of the energies from the Earth's core! But everyone's here, Ulysses. Your parents are here, Ulysses. Let them all die. No one is innocent, Ulysses screams as he starts to absorb everything into himself. I'm sorry that's how you feel, but I'll need to stop you. And Superman begins to pump out his heat vision. I'll take your heat vision and I'll use it to help me. Thank you, Superman. So Superman pushes himself, and he pushes farther than he's ever done before, and he uses everything in his very being. He does the one thing that he's never done before. He loses control, and he explodes. His body gives off massive amounts of heat, burning everything around him as he steps forward. And with each step, Ulysses is pushed back against the force that is just coming off of Superman's body. As Superman stares Ulysses down, and he prepares to let loose whatever this power is, Ulysses looks at him. I was only trying to save my home. And Superman lets loose everything, causing a larger explosion than ever before. Both men collapse into the crater that Superman has left behind. Superman wakes up in the Batcave. Good morning, Clark. You detonated. It would seem that along with everything else you can do, you've gained a new power. I'll admit, I'm kinda jealous. A new superpower? Clark says, confused. It would seem that your heat vision is actually a precursor to a much larger power, a solar flare. It burns up all of the energy in your cells and it turns you human for one day. So Clark leaves to see where they put Ulysses, and it looks like he is powerless and contained for now. Clark manages to see Ulysses' parents arrive and tell him that they will always love their son, and he presses his hand against the glass, which leaves Clark to realize that once again he's alone, with no one to talk to about this whole Superman thing. So he does what anyone with good friends would do. He invites Jimmy Olsen over and tells him, I'm Superman, Jimmy. This is actually the precursor to the storyline that you were all asking, Truth, where Superman loses his powers for good. We don't know what's going on with that storyline yet, but this does kind of explain how they got there. I'm Benny for Comicstorian, and make sure you follow us on Twitter at Comicstorian, Instagram at Comicstorian, and Facebook at Eligible Monster. I'll see you guys next time right here, and check out the other videos on screen. You might just enjoy them.